Still too dark. Come on. Hi, everyone. It's me, Sailor Moon. Serena, and me, Sailor Mini Moon, or Little Moon, or Small Moon Rini here. And today we're going to talk about, you know, today we're going to talk about folks who still seek things about WWE that they do not like. Now, back in 2022, while WWE started to what some would call had a new birth. What they ended up putting forgiveness on this new birth was that at the time, for at least those 4 months or so, they gave the onlook to Stephanie McMahon, Nick Khan, and Hunter S. Helmsley, so how the three of them were handling things. And even when Vince McMahon came back for a year in 2023, while folks still did not really fear it all that much. There may have been some who were worried, but not as worried as they were. Now once Endeavor Group Holdings or Undertake Team Holdings bought WWE, everyone was like, yay, we got new ownership and new leadership again. We have Ariel Liddell and Patrick Whitesell. We have, we got Mark Shapiro. Vince McMahon doesn't have any sway anymore. Nick Khan, Hunter S. Helmsley got full run and lead over how WWE runs and good grounds. Well, and in 2025 YL, Silver Lake Tool's leadership, which was owned by Ken Hun, which was a half owner of Undertake Team Holdings, fully bought Undertake Team Holdings. And everyone started to bitch about that and say, oh no, they're putting showings on Raw and SmackDown NXT rings. We can't have that. The WWE ring never had showings on it from between 52 YL to 2025 YL. Oh, they're killing it. Where all this came from, who knows? There may have even those naysayers who can go way back to 2001 YL were still bitching about things they didn't like. And now they're saying that WWE's dying again. But WWE seems to run truly well for a wrestling business that seems to be dying in some folks' eyes. The same folks are back to their own things again. So I guess you can never make everyone happy. You can't make everyone happy with everything. And those naysayers had new things to bitch about. And they had this I do not like list. But sadly, some of those things would never be taken off the list. No need how much they bitched about it. Well, you're right, Sailor Moon. You're right, Serena. They're all going to be naysayers. They are going to be folks that are still unhappy with how things are. No need how many ownerships and leaderships come. There were folks that still were unhappy with it when Undertake Team Holdings had the main ownership at WWE. And they said all kinds of shit. There were folks that were still unhappy when Silver Lake Tool's leadership had full ownership over WWE by buying Undertake Team Holdings, which itself also owned full Knockout Team Holdings. So those naysayers were never ever going away. They always make films talking about how the good days are gone and it's back to being bad again. But if that most likely is their belief, and they cannot show it to be true. Buying, gelding, or incoming the wrestling ring does not mean a wrestling business is dying. I don't know where they got that from. They sometimes forget that WCW from time to time would have geld their ring, But then again, I guess they'd never watched WCW, were unaware of that. But whatever. The grounds is that they can say whatever they want to say. They got that freedom to say. They got that freedom to believe it or to think it. But I don't really think they can show it to be true. At the end of the day, WWE is still doing truly well for itself. It is way above. It's for some folks, WWE is doing well, and for some folks, it's still doing bad. Now, some folks out there will think that AEW is going to catch up and surpass WWE. Well, they couldn't surpass WWE in those 6 years, so I don't think they ever will. It's kind of hard for a 6-year-old to surpass a 71-year-old or whatever. Now, anyway, at the end of the day, I still like WWE, and I think WWE is still doing very well for itself, Now, do I know what Nick Kong does when he runs WWE? No. Do I know what Hunter S. Helmsley does? No. I have a thought, but I don't know. Do I know what Ken Hahn and Ariel Dell and Patrick Whitesell and Mark Shapiro do when they handle the day-to-day business ends of Undertake Team Holdings, Full Knockout Team Holdings, and Silver Lake leadership? No, I don't. But they must know what they're doing, or those businesses wouldn't be around. Yeah, you're right, Rini. You're right, Sailor Mini Moon, Small Moon, Little Moon. There are always going to be folks that are still unhappy with how WWE is, folks that will always seek something they don't like about it, and that will never go away. But to say that the good times are over, that it's dying, well, then that's more of a belief and thought of some who have had that thought and belief going back as early as 2001 YL, and that would have been about 24 years ago. But anyway, I still think WWE is doing very well for itself, at least in my belief. And now, no, that would have been 7 years ago. Yeah, 7 years ago. My mistake. That would have been 7 years ago that folks started to say that about WWE. Anyway, give it film a like, share and playlist it, and I'll see you later.